Today, we're diving into a pretty stark warning from historians and political analysts about the state of American democracy. Using their work, we're going to break down the psychology, the political strategy, and what they see as the systematic dismantling of the very institutions meant to protect us. It's what they call a modern authoritarian playbook.
So let's start with this quote. A congressman, as cited by a historian, says a shutdown isn't a shutdown, it's a dissolution. That the shutdown is the coup. Now, the argument here is that this isn't just political drama, it's a literal interpretation. That a government shutdown could be used as a weapon, not to negotiate, but to rule without any oversight from Congress at all.
So, how in the world do you get to a conclusion like that? I mean, it sounds extreme, right? Well, to understand their thinking, the sources say we have to start with the psychology of the leader at the very center of this whole movement. They argue it's this combination of personality and cognitive function that experts in the material find so alarming. Okay, so the source material lays out this two-part psychological profile put together by experts who have been analyzing years of public behavior. And the key thing is, they argue these aren't two separate issues. No, they're factors that are compounding, feeding into each other, and creating what they see as a uniquely dangerous situation. First up is a term you might not hear every day: malignant narcissism. This isn't your standard diagnosis. It's a specific, pretty severe term that has its roots in trying to explain the psychology of authoritarian leaders. And it's described as, well, basically a perfect storm of the most destructive personality traits all rolled into one. And what's really powerful here is how they break this down. See, it's not just about ego or being vain. It's this toxic mix of four things: pathological grandiosity, a psychopathic lack of remorse and disregard for anyone's rights, a paranoid worldview that sees conspiracies everywhere, and this is the really dark one, a sadistic enjoyment in hurting people and breaking things. But it doesn't stop there. On top of this personality disorder, the sources highlight a second, more recent development: signs of what psychologists in the material are identifying as dementia. And the key here, they stress, isn't about age. It's about a clear, visible decline from his own previous level of functioning. And you can really see the change in this slide. Back in the 80s, he was known for being super articulate, speaking in these polished paragraphs. But today, psychologists point to a pattern of struggling to even finish a thought, jumping between totally unrelated topics and using weird, nonsensical sounds instead of real words, something they actually had a name for: phonemic paraphasia. And it's not just the language. The sources point to more and more erratic decisions, moments of just wandering off and looking disoriented, really significant memory lapses, like we're talking not even recognizing a major political figure. And you can even see a noticeable decline in his physical coordination. And here's the crucial point that one expert makes, and it's pretty chilling. The person you see today is the best you're going to get, because this isn't a static condition. The whole nature of cognitive decline is that it's degenerative. It doesn't get better, it only gets worse, which poses an escalating risk over time. Okay, so you have this psychological profile, but how does that actually turn into a powerful political strategy? Well, one analyst in our source material, Finton O'Toole, argues that this personality didn't just pop up in a vacuum. It found a market it could totally exploit. So how do you make that leap from a psychological diagnosis to a full-blown political movement? Well, the answer, according to the source, all comes down to branding. And before he found his political base, a completely different brand was tested, one that seems almost unbelievable today. I mean, just look at this. Back in 2000, the pitch was all about diversity and inclusion. He even floated Oprah Winfrey as a running mate. But that brand found absolutely no buyers. Then, after 2008, came the big realization. There was this massive underserved market for grievance and resentment. So he pivoted hard. He rebranded from inclusion to exclusion. And what was the core product he started selling to this new market? It's what the source calls political self-pity. It's that feeling that you, the real American, are actually the victim, that your rightful place in the world is under attack, and all your problems are the fault of them. This rotating cast of outsiders who are supposedly getting ahead at your expense. And once you tap into an emotion that powerful, the entire political strategy can change. Suddenly, the goal isn't to win over a majority of people by persuading them. Nope. It becomes about firing up a passionate minority and then using all the weird quirks in the political system to grab power and hold on to it.
Okay, so if you don't need a majority, how do you consolidate that power? Well, the sources argue you do it by systematically attacking the very institutions, the guardrails of democracy, that were designed to prevent someone from abusing power in the first place. The analysis here draws this really powerful contrast with the Nixon era. I mean, think about it. Back then, you had an independent Congress, an independent judiciary, and a free press that all worked to check the president's power. But today, the sources argue those guardrails have been seriously weakened. Congress is more compliant, the courts are more politicized, and the press has been branded the enemy of the people. And don't think for a second this is just random or chaotic. The source material points directly to Project 2025 as the literal playbook for a second term. It's described as a highly detailed, systematic blueprint for taking over the entire federal government, and it's designed to crush any remaining institutional resistance from day one. So, after all that, it sounds pretty bleak, right? But the sources we're looking at don't just end with a dire warning. They pivot. They pivot to what they see as the essential, absolutely critical role of the citizen in defending democracy. The historians actually offer a clear three-part strategy. First, relentless civic pressure. Call, email, show up, flood the offices of your representatives. Second, strengthen your local communities. And third, and they stress this is critical, you have to remain nonviolent. They warn that authoritarian leaders often try to bait people into violence because it gives them the perfect excuse to crack down with force. So what's the bottom line here? The crucial point is that this whole framework redefines what it means to participate in a democracy. It's not just about voting every couple of years. It's about constant vigilance. It's the understanding that democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's something that has to be actively, constantly defended by its citizens. And ultimately, this is the question the sources leave us with. It's a challenge, really. A challenge to stop being just a spectator and start thinking about what our active, personal responsibility is for the survival of democracy.